Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Heather Denniston with the Junk You Should Know show. Welcome, welcome. I have with me today Dr. Carolyn Griffin. I am so excited. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's a total pleasure. Dr. Carolyn and I met not that long ago, and I immediately found out about her interest in probiotics, fermented foods, and how she is kind of an expert in the field. And so we are going to be talking about that. But also, Dr. Carolyn is an incredible chiropractor. So she has all sorts of talents that she's going to share with us today. And I'm so glad that we can be talking about this and sharing it with our audience today. So thanks again I know she literally just ran in here after her last patient and sat down in a whirlwind and we pressed go. So, so Dr. Carolyn, will you tell me a little bit about your background and how you got interested in this sort of area of fermenting in kefir and kombucha and all of these different things?
Sure. So it started a few years ago, actually. If I were to step back further, so I had a woman in my community come to our home and we did a raw food party in the kitchen. And she mentioned this word kefir. And I was like, what is that? And I got the answer, but it never really stuck. And it always just I was like, what is this kefir? Because you'd see it here and there, but it was never really anything that still made sense to me. I understood raw food and I understood all of that good stuff, but kefir, I was like, what does that mean? And anyway, so fast forward years later, one of my patients / friend came into the office and she says, guess what I'm doing? And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm making kefir. I'm like, whoa, there's that word again. I'm like, what is that? And she's like, it's this fermented drink and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, I'm all in. I want to do that. I know I want to do that. So how do I do it? And so she came to my home, taught me how to do it. And I just been going since. And so it went from kefir to kombucha to fermented foods. And then that transitioned into, well, hang on a second. Now, these fermented foods are great. It's loaded with probiotics. But then it was the whole thing of all these people started coming into my office that had gut health issues. And everything just started connecting for me. And so since then, I've been working on a gut health course. So everything has just been like this evolution. And it's been really great ride because I've been learning and putting things together so much for other people to help other people as well. So it's been
That's awesome. And we are going to talk about that course because I think it's a nice round out to what we're talking about today. Sure. So tell me a little bit about, we're all seeing it everywhere, fermented foods, sauerkraut, and all of that stuff. Actually, you know what? Let me ask a spot question, and that is, how do people what is the difference between pickled and fermented?
Yeah, so in some worlds, it's kind of the same, but there is a distinction. Some people use the word interchangeably, meaning the same, but there is a real, like I said, distinction. So pickled, a lot of times when I hear the word pickled, I think they're using vinegar, and it's heated and it's canned. And it's not really, when you do that, you're killing all the good probiotics. It's not really raw or fermenting. And so to me, there's a difference. So in some cultures, they use pickled as in it's the same type of thing. But in the US, it's like two different things.
Well, and so are you saying that when I eat a pickle or my favorite pickled asparagus, I'm not getting much of a probiotic benefit from that?
Depends on how it's made. So for example, if you're eating something that is canned off a shelf, typically commercialized, right? It's like what is it? Vlasic?
Yeah.
Right. So if you get something like that, that is a pickle, yes. However, it has been canned, which means it's been heated, which means all the good probiotics have been killed off. So it's still good, but it doesn't have the power punch good for you that a fermented food would have.
Okay. So then what are the benefits from fermented foods? Why am I buying these things?
So you can buy these things. It's costly. So what I would always recommend is try making it yourself. And that's where I kind of come in and would like to help people learn how to do that if they're interested. And for some, they're super busy. It's like, I have a friend who's like, you know what, I don't have time for this. I've got young kids and I'm working full time and I would just, make it for me, and she's like, make it for me. But if you have to go to the store to buy it, I'd rather you do that than not do it at all if you don't have the time. So what are you looking for? Or why are you doing it? The reason why is because fermented foods is loaded with probiotics. And here's the interesting thing, to have really good gut health, it's actually the diversity of different bacteria that you actually have, which will make the difference. So when you're buying a probiotic supplement, or if you're eating fermented foods, it's you have to, for one, if you're looking for supplements, there's specific things to look for. But when it comes to fermented foods, it's already naturally occurring in the brine, in that food, that's why you want to eat it. So it's loaded with numerous strains of bacteria, and which are the probiotics, and it's so good for your gut health. And when you incorporate not just cultured foods or fermented foods, but like kefir plus kombucha, that's like a triune of health, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You're getting 12 different types of bacteria, which is going to make your gut that much healthier.
Okay, so then I think you've answered it, but let's just repeat it, because I know this is a question for folks, and that is, well, should I just take a probiotic pill? Is that good enough? Is that the same? Is it more or less probiotic count? How does that go?
Yeah. So, okay. Here's the thing with probiotic supplements. Now, I would prefer most people that, if you look at some of the research, like there's a person that wrote, I can't think of the gentleman's name, but he wrote a book, and he was researching, and he asked a lot of experts in the field, what type of probiotic supplement you guys take? And they said, actually, we get our probiotics from fermented foods. So ideally, that's where you're going to get it. However, not everyone can have access to that, and or would like to have a probiotic pill because maybe they don't like the taste of sauerkraut. I'd rather, so something is better than nothing, right? So here's what it's for. You want to have a high number of strains of bacteria, and you want to have a high number of CFUs, which is colony forming units, which is the number of viable bacterial cells in that probiotic supplement.
Okay.
So what we notice is, don't just go by the least expensive or the most expensive. Actually look at the bottle and see what you're getting. And there's different strains. And so, if you have gut health, like a leaky gut type issue, you might want to find a bacteria that's higher in bifidobacteria, because that's going to help mature or heal the gut lining more quickly. So the different types of bacteria also matter. So it could get really tricky. Still, to make it a little bit more basic, just look for high number of strains. Like I have some examples when I teach is, one will say probiotic 10 and 25 billion. And it's like, okay, there's only 10 strains of bacteria in that particular bottle, and there's only 25 billion bacteria or colony forming units. Well, that means it's not much better than yogurt. And so if you spend a whole lot of money on a probiotic, at least get a better quality one, but don't just buy the most expensive, actually read the bottle.
I think that's great. And I think one other thing, James Chestnut, I'm a big fan, and he is sort of a chiropractor, but a wellness mentor as well. And he actually produces his own probiotic. But one of the things that he talks about too is, if you're not sure, like you said, find 2 or 3 brands that have lots of strains, lots of CFUs, and alternate between them, because, is that a good...
Alternating is good. You should alternate between a couple of different types of probiotic supplements so that your body doesn't just get the one. Again, that's kind of like fermented foods, kefir, kombucha. You're going to get a lot of different diversity that way.
Well, and Carolyn, it's like we're supposed to eat anyway, seasonally, right? We're supposed to rotate our foods. We're not supposed to eat the same darn thing every single day. And it's what gets us into a lot of gut issues, is this idea of, we get stuck in a rut, especially with our vegetables, where you're eating the same vegetable every day. So it's yet another plug for, alternate, rotate, make sure that you're changing it up.
It's good to eat seasonal vegetables, like what's in season. That's what our body's meant to eat, is what's in season, not what's shipped because it's still, growing over there when maybe where we live, it's not. Season. So we should be eating the things that are in season. That helps us alternate our foods.
Yeah, that's great. So that leads us into probiotic versus prebiotic. What is a prebiotic? What do we need both? How does that all work?
So there is a difference between a prebiotic and a probiotic. So probiotic, we know, is the good bacteria. A prebiotic is actually food for that probiotic.
Okay.
So it's the food for it. So examples would be like onions, leeks, asparagus, artichoke. Those are some good probiotics. It's like higher fiber that actually feeds the good bacteria to help them continue to grow and multiply. And when we do that, it's a good idea because we want to increase the good number of probiotics in our gut, not have a lot of the bad, because when there's that imbalance, that's when we tend to get sick.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes total sense. Hey, who's ever watching, just signal below by writing in the comments, do you take a probiotic or do you not? And if so, do you take a supplement or do you focus on your food? So start a conversation below while we're talking. And so let's get into it. Kefir, kombucha, fermented veggies. We know that you're saying kind of take a variety, but if I'm just starting, do you have a place that you recommend that I start? Like, what's the easiest one to start to absorb into my diet, no pun intended?
Yeah, absorb into your diet and incorporate into your lifestyle, because it is a little bit of work when you enter this world of fermentation, because it's like a science project, to be honest. And it is. And it's like, okay, so that's fermenting in the pantry or on the kitchen counter. And now it's starting to bubble. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm in chemistry again. It's like, okay, and let's make sure there's no mold growing or anything bad that's growing on it, and make sure there's no direct sunlight. So there's all these like protocols to make sure. So because it's a new world for a lot of folks, I really, truly just recommend starting with kefir. And I bring this up all the time. And it's my absolute favorite and go-to, not because it's the best tasting, but because it's the easiest. And when it's the easiest and you succeed, then you're going to be able to take the next step to the next thing. If you fail miserably because you're starting with something mildly complicated like kombucha, you might be like, forget it. This is not for me. I'll just go ahead and pay $5 a bottle or whatever. Yes. And so, we want to have these wins, and these wins can happen when you start simply and easily. And kefir is one of those things that you can do. And it's so hard to mess it up. It really, truly is. It takes a lot of work to mess it up. You can only kill kefir two ways. It's by heat or starvation. So either you're not feeding it or you accidentally heated it up somehow, and it dies. The grains die. But other than that, it's super simple. So I always recommend start with that, because you can make it, and it's also very quick, meaning within 24 hours, you can have a batch. Within 24 hours, you have a batch. And that's how quickly it can go. So on my website, I do want them to at least go there, because I get a lot of questions. Well, how do I make it? Or what do I do? Or what's a recipe? It's all right there. It's like great information, all for you to digest, no pun intended. That good stuff. And then you can just see what it takes. It has how to make it, recipes for it, and for kefir, kombucha, and also for fermented foods. So it gives you a good stuff. The pickles that you talked about, sauerkraut. I love to ferment spicy carrots, also ginger, garlic, and turmeric. So now you're having these really amazing, vegetables, or like almost herbs. I mean, ginger's like an herb. And turmeric as well, and garlic. And you have all of these wonderful things. And then you ferment it, and it's like 10 times better.
And it's like you're creating an apothecary in your kitchen, and which is so great. Hey, let me just say from Hillary, she says she does her probiotics from food. And I like what she said, because she uses homemade kombucha, sauerkraut, yogurt, and kefir. She didn't notice any improvement taking the supplements, which are expensive. And I think that's true. And so I want to just say, guys, like Carolyn said, probably about midway and down, you open that bottle of probiotics that you just purchased, because it was $25 instead of $32, and most of them are dead inside. So if they're not the right type of probiotic, if they're not stored or packaged correctly, if they're not kept refrigerated, once probiotics get to a certain temperature, they'll either die if they can't colonize. So that's part of the problem with probiotic supplements. If you're going and picking one up at Rite Aid, you are likely buying a bottle full of dead bacteria. So keep that in mind. That's why food is so much better, is because sauerkraut is not going to have dead probiotics.
Yeah, and it's live, and it's homemade, and it's fresh, and it's right into your system.
I love
carrier. That's also, and the other thing, it's a good carrier going into, it can pass the stomach, the acid, and get into the small intestine, the large intestine, where it needs to get to.
And I love that. And I think anytime we supplementize a whole food, like a probiotic, for example, we have to remember that we really don't know what the other properties of the food contribute to making that special thing in their work. And so, for example, when you pull out and create your own probiotics in a petri dish and stick it in a capsule, it's missing all the whole food around it. And we don't necessarily know if that is so, well, we do know, but we know intuitively, but that plays such a big role in the success. And so it's the same thing with like your omega-3s and all of that. You can't just take a supplement in isolation. You have to be taking some food in that also contains that thing, I think.
I agree. I believe that 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, so let's talk about the mother. What is it?
The mother. So the mother is basically, in the world of kombucha, a SCOBY, which is like this firm, thick, gel-like disc. And SCOBY stands for symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast. And that's the magic. That is actually, you put that in sweet black tea and let it ride or let it sit for a week or two, maybe 3, depending on the temperature of your home. And voila, you have kombucha. That is it. It is it really truly is simple for kombucha as well. And what's really cool about kombucha is it has this yeast. It's called Saccharomyces boulardii. And that is a really amazing probiotic. And it is so powerful that they use it in hospitals. That it's formulated in a probiotic that they give to patients in the form of Florastor. The name brand is Florastor. So that Saccharomyces boulardii, that is actually found in kombucha. So that yeast is pretty amazing. So
interesting.
That's really good. So for people that are on antibiotics and things of that nature, drink kombucha if you can, because that yeast cannot be killed by an antibiotic. So that's a good thing to know.
Yeah, that is a good thing to know. And it's funny you mentioned that because one of my naturopaths turned me onto Florastar from a long time ago for travel. So just because it is such a great probiotic, and I'm not trying to promote the brand, but your point being that what's in that is a strong bug. Which is great. So we talked about the mother. It's that nasty thing that like I've drank and it drips down my chin and it's super gross. And then you pick it up and you put it right back in your mouth. And you want that. So the other day I'm going to not say the brand, but we bought a case of it thinking it was great. And I'm holding it up to the light and it's clear as day. I'm like, no, I want the foggy stuff.
I want the floaties. Yeah.
I want the floaties, guys, and you want to drink them. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So that's super important.
And when you go ahead.
I was just going to say, so if you're faced with a few kombuchas, pick the cloudiest one is my recommendation. Would you agree, Doctor?
I do agree.
Okay.
And just so people kind of get the idea too, like let's talk about apple cider vinegar. Like apple cider vinegar raw with mother, or it's raw and unpasteurized. Like I hold up 2 brands in my office. I'm like, okay, everyone knows what apple cider vinegar is, but they're not all the same. So if you have one that's the amber color, it's great. But if you look, it's been pasteurized, it's been heated. Pasteurization is the heating process. So it kills everything good in it. It's still apple cider vinegar, but what you really want is the apple cider vinegar with mother. It's raw, unfiltered, unpasteurized, and it's got all the floaties in it. And that is the mother. So,
that's what you want. Yeah. No, that's great. I'm glad you brought up apple cider vinegar because people always have tons of questions about that. So yes, buy the cloudy ACV. Don't buy the clear. If you're going to buy the clear, use it as a cleaning product. Don't drink it. So we talked. So how? Maybe you do or do not know this, but we talked about CFUs. Is there a certain amount we're aiming for in a day?
I don't know if if you're really eating fermented foods, it's like, how do you really count how much you're actually
getting? Good point.
So I don't know if there is a magic number, but I do know that for the younger you are, you don't need as much. Like as you get older, like you should titrate up as much as you can, like get more in there. And I also know that depending on what kind of issues that you have, you might want to also, you might need to load more than normal, than your everyday, I'm healthy, I'm just eating, I'm just maintaining. But if you've got an issue, you want to load things in. I do want to say this though, because we are talking about it. If somebody does have an issue, a gut issue, I don't want them to think that, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and start immediately loading in kefir, kombucha, and fermented foods because, again, it is bacteria. It is good for you. But if you have a condition called SIBO, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth, if you have that and you load in more, it can actually make your symptoms worse. So you might actually be doing yourself a disservice if you end up loading in too much too soon. There is an actual proper protocol to go through to make sure that you're getting the fermented foods in. And honestly, it's the last step. It's not the first, because we want to make sure that we are addressing certain issues and killing off certain bad bacteria, not loading in the prebiotic right away, because guess what? If it's feeding the good bacteria, it's also going to feed the bad. So you need to make sure there's a certain number of steps or protocol to go through. Thank you. In order for you to go through, in order to do it right, or else you're going to, again, well, that didn't work. And it's like, no, it's not true. It's just the wrong order. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you need to make sure it's properly.
Yeah, I think that's such good advice. And you mentioned SIBO, which is, a possibility for many with gut disturbance. So follow up on that on your own. But another just rule of thumb is, if you're starting to take a probiotic and you feel it's extraordinarily bloated or farty, then you may be ramping up too quickly. So pull back, divide your dose if you need to. Take a little in the morning, a little at night, let your body process through, and work up, because it's new stuff. And your gut lining is like, what the hey? Because it's just too much too quick. So
when you load in a lot of the good, it's pushing out the bad. So when you're doing that, which is not a bad thing, it's obviously what we want. But if it's happening too quickly, you're going to have diarrhea, you're going to run to the toilet, and it's a healing crisis. That is not a bad thing, but you don't want to be completely uncomfortable through the process. You don't want to be in the restroom the entire day. And you might want to actually start this process on the weekend when you're not going to have to go anywhere, just to see how your body responds to something. So when I have people start on kefir, I say a quarter cup, just do a quarter cup. If they're eating, raw sauerkraut, just do 2 forkfuls, just get it in your system, see how your body responds, eat a little bit more. You don't need to have half your plate of all this stuff, and then you're going to feel really bad. You know what I mean? You're not going to respond wonderfully. And we just want you to be comfortable and go through the process and slowly load it in, like you said, so it's not overwhelming the system. Yeah,
I think that's huge. We need to respect the body's timeline for change, and so I think that's great advice. If somebody wants to get started at home, you said start with kefir, and I missed one sentence that you said, and I think you said all of the recipes you have are on your website, the kefir, and is that where you were saying all those recipes are?
Yeah, so what I have are not just the recipes, but actually the how-tos. How do I make kefir? How do I make kombucha? And how do I make fermented foods? When you have now let's say you've made some kefir, the end product is actually quite tart, because it's 99% lactose free, which means the kefir grains have eaten all the lactose within that of the milk. And so the end product is sour, and it doesn't always taste delicious on its own. So what I have there are now recipes for you to go through what we call a second ferment. The second ferment is what we call is the flavoring process, honestly. And so you'd add strawberries and or some stevia. You can make it delicious in any way. I make, like this chocolate banana. I've made peach cobbler, all lemon. So those recipes are there, but you need to first make kefir. So here's
I get it.
And then there's a way to flavor it or second ferment it. Same thing with kombucha. Here's how to, and then here's how you second ferment with lemon ginger or strawberry mint or spirulina, all kinds of fun things.
Love it.
So it's all on the website for you.
Okay. Can you say the name of the website for me?
It's www.myculturedlife.com.
Okay. Excellent. So I will put that down in the links below for sure. And maybe I will also just post direct links to a couple of the recipes, and we'll just put some of that in the conversation below. Hillary, a big yuck on the mother. It's like cooked okra, slimy. Yes, it is. And so as it's going down your throat, you have to just thank the good Lord above for blessing us with this incredibly powerful healing source, I think is what we have to do. Exactly. So we covered such great ground in such a short amount of time. And so I want to thank you for that. Is there anything that I missed asking or that our audience would want to know before we sign off?
Well, like you said, respecting the body, I agree. And I also think we need to respect Mother Nature. And, one of the things that I see a lot is the use of hand sanitizers. So even though we're talking about fermented foods and we're talking about all those types of things. I really truly think a lot more about the gut in this regard. And so when we're using hand sanitizers, we've got bacteria all around us. It is okay. We should really be surrounded by dirt, dust, and dander, and we shouldn't be killing off all of those bacteria, because you're not just killing off the bad, but the collateral damage is that you're killing off the good. And research is now showing that a lot of our chronic degenerative diseases are stemming from us using too many antibiotics and hand sanitizers and annihilating, a lot of the bacteria with vaccinations. All kinds of different things are going on.
Yeah, over sterilizing for sure.
So we need to be very careful in that. I do want to mention the gut health course, if we can. Just
yes, please. Well, in fact, Hillary was just asking, are there any books that you would recommend? Well, the first thing I would recommend is Dr. Carolyn is just finishing an online course. So tell us about that. And then if there's any other published resources that you recommend other than your website, then please let us know that at the end. So course and then any other resources.
Sure. So the course is called the 5 R's of Healing Leaky Gut. And the R's are remove, repair, revitalize, renovate, and then rebuild. And that is the order that I was kind of talking about earlier on. Because a lot of times what we need to do is actually remove a lot of the things that are causing the issues, a lot of the toxins, not just the foods that we're eating, not clear out just your pantry, but also maybe what's in your bathroom, the shampoos and conditioners. Those are all toxic to our body too. So I go through a list of things that you need to do in that. Then we need to actually repair the gut lining. When you have leaky gut, your gut lining is actually only 1 cell thick. And so by eating GMOs or, artificial sweeteners or these types of things, it can actually wreak havoc on the gut lining. Basically, imagine punching holes through it so that it creates this leakage of toxins going into the bloodstream, making you sick and not healthy. So you need to repair that gut lining. And we prepare that gut lining because when we start to go through the renovation process, what ends up happening is we're going to clear it out. We don't want it to seep out through the gut lining. So we want to heal it as best we can with probiotics that are high in bifidobacteria. So that's where the supplements come in that regard. So that serves its purpose. Then we need to actually revitalize. And because we're going to be going through and getting our body ready for this type of situation that's about to occur, we need to boost our immune system and our adrenals. When we get that boosted, now we are ready to renovate. Kind of like when you renovate a kitchen, you're tearing everything down before you rebuild. We're going to kill a lot of that bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungi that are overabundant in our system, which is causing a lot of problems. So there's certain supplements that you need to take. And then you can start to rebuild. That's when you want to incorporate actual prebiotics and fermented foods. And prior to that, the probiotic supplements and polyphenols. We don't want to get right into prebiotics, but you want to get into polyphenols, which is going to help you, but not feed the bad bacteria, which is going to create your overgrowth. So it's a great system. I'm working on getting that done. It will be on the website.
Perfect.
For people to grab, if that's interesting for you, if you know somebody that is suffering, this is absolutely going to help them go through that process.
And let me just say, if somebody here is interested, you can always email Carolyn to hold on to your email address, and she can send you the information as soon as it is ready. So don't hesitate to reach out to her, or just tag her in the comments below that, yes, I'm interested. She'll
they also join my community on the website. It says join our community. They can, if you end up putting in your email, you will get a quick start guide of how to make kefir directly in your inbox. So you'll get that. You can hold on to that. Then when things start to come through on our end and we're ready, I can then let you know. I'll send an email blast to everyone saying it is ready. It's on the website and it's ready to go. So that way you can stay connected with what we're doing.
Yeah, that's great. So any other resources that you can think of now before we kind of wind down that you would direct people to?
So there's some wonderful fermented books, The Art of Fermentation. There's a lot of different books that are out there by great people that have been in this and been doing it for a long time. But I have to say, it is still pretty new territory. And there's, a lot of people that have been making, raw sauerkraut and wonderful things like that. That's how I started, was just the fermentation. And then we get into the other things. Dr. Pearl Mutter is another one who's really great when it comes to great gut health. He's got some great information as far as what's good and bad. Those are good places to start. As I think of them, I'll add it to the bottom of the comments.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I think Perlmutter is a great suggestion,
Sure.
and we can add a couple extra links down below. So thank you so much for joining us today on the show. I really, really appreciate it, your wealth of knowledge. And this is a new subject, so it's great to have somebody who is ahead on the journey and can speak to hows and whens and whys of all of this probiotic stuff. So I look forward to interviewing you again at some future date when you've got your course ready to go.
Appreciate that. I would love to.
Yeah, absolutely. And so stay on with me, Dr. Carolyn. Everybody else, have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you next Friday, same time. We've got Dr. Moma here next Friday on epigenetics. So that's going to be, or on genetic testing rather, not epigenetics, genetic testing. And so we'll see you all again next Friday at noon PST. Until then, have a wonderful weekend and week, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Thank you.